Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you with us today because, well, we're tackling a subject that almost every single one of us deals with on a daily basis, whether we realize it or not. We're talking about silence. Or actually, scratch that. We're talking about why we seem to have completely lost the ability to just sit in it. Think about your day so far, right? Has there been a single moment where you weren't consuming some form of media, listening to a voice, or staring at a screen? For most of us, the answer is a big, resounding no. Complete silence has become incredibly rare these days, and honestly, our struggle with it reveals something utterly fascinating about how our modern minds are operating. Okay, let's dive into this. Do you need a podcast, maybe some music playing, or even just the TV chattering away in the next room, just to do something as simple as the dishes? Or folding the laundry, maybe driving down to the grocery store? Look, this is a highly relatable, everyday behavior. I mean, we treat these quiet, mundane moments as empty spaces that just desperately need to be filled with noise. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just multitasking, or that we just like having a little background entertainment while we do our chores. But what if that totally normal, everyday habit is actually masking something much, much deeper? Well, psychology suggests a rather uncomfortable truth about this need for constant background noise. It says, you're not just bored, you're hiding from your own thoughts. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. When you instinctively reach for your phone the second there's a lull in the conversation, or when you immediately fire up a show the moment you walk into an empty house, it's not actually because you're experiencing a lack of things to do. According to the research we're unpacking in this explainer, you are actively retreating. You're literally using that noise as a shield to block out the internal monologue that kicks in when everything else goes quiet. And that brings us right into our first section, hiding from your thoughts. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it gives that everyday agitation some serious academic weight. We're looking at a concept called weak mental processing, which is a psychological state leading people to panic at silence and reach for constant instant gratification. See, to really understand this, we've got to look under the hood of the human mind. Why does the absence of external noise feel like an actual threat? Notice that this isn't about intelligence, right? It's a specific psychological state where a person literally begins to panic in the presence of silence. Because they lack the mental habit of engaging with their own internal thoughts, the quiet just feels completely overwhelming. And the immediate response to that panic, the reflex, is to reach out for instant gratification. It's a defense mechanism, plain and simple. We feel the anxiety creeping in, our mental processing isn't strong enough to sit with it, so we desperately grab the nearest screen just to self-soothe. And that exact reflex leads us directly into our next section, the dopamine trap. Let's move through this and see how it builds, because this is where we shift from the internal discomfort into the actual behavioral mechanics, locking us into this endless pattern. Once you start hiding from your thoughts, your brain actively rewires itself to reward that exact behavior. It's a rapid-fire cycle of lower-level habits. Step 1, silence. The podcast ends, the room goes quiet. Step 2, panic sets in. That subtle, uncomfortable feeling of weak mental processing we just talked about. Step 3, you reach for your phone. It's an automatic reflex, almost like muscle memory at this point. And finally, step 4, instant gratification. You open an app, see a bright color, hear a sound, and boom, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. The panic subsides. But the huge problem here is you've just reinforced a cycle that teaches your brain to treat silence as an absolute emergency and your phone as the rescue medication. So what's actually happening to us when we're stuck inside this loop? Well, we're doing 3 incredibly destructive things. First, we're constantly avoiding the discomfort of being alone with ourselves, which means we never ever actually process our feelings or ideas. Second, we're actively training the brain to crave dopamine bursts. We are literally conditioning ourselves to require a steady drip of digital stimulation just to feel baseline normal. And third, we're seeking constant distraction over reflection. These lower-level habits completely hijack our focus. They rob us of our attention span and actively block us from experiencing the real benefits that only come from true, uninterrupted quiet. But thankfully, there is a way out of this trap, which brings us to our final section, the power of solitude. I want us to deliberately slow down for a second here. Just take a breath. Think about the quiet reflection we've been discussing. Solitude doesn't have to be something that causes panic. In fact, if we can just learn to sit through that initial discomfort, silence transforms from a terrifying void into one of the absolute most powerful mental tools we have. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact contrast we're talking about today. Look at the stark difference between these 2 mental profiles. On one side, we have lower-level habits that simply train the brain to crave dopamine bursts just to avoid discomfort. But on the other side, intelligent minds use solitude for reflection. They don't run from the quiet. They recognize that silence is the required environment for complex thought, for problem solving, and for genuine self-awareness. They use the very space that everyone else is frantically trying to fill with noise. Okay, so let's summarize exactly what we should take away from this explainer to really empower ourselves. First, we need to completely reframe our understanding. Solitude is not boredom. Those are two entirely different things. Second, silence is actually a tool for mental processing. It's like the necessary canvas your brain needs to organize information and generate intelligent insights. And finally, and honestly, perhaps most importantly, reflection requires sitting with discomfort. The urge to reach for your phone for that instant gratification, it's gonna happen. You will feel that initial panic. But pushing through that discomfort is exactly how you build stronger mental processing. So, the crucial point is this. I want to leave you with a direct, slightly provocative challenge to test your own daily habits. Can you endure 5 minutes of complete silence right after this explainer ends? No podcast, no music, no television, no phone. Just you sitting alone with your own thoughts, allowing your intelligent mind the space it actually needs to reflect. Give it a try. See what happens when you finally stop hiding from yourself. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.